So I want to share some things with you all today. And would you like to see, I'm going to let you choose. Do you want to see what I have new first? Do you want to see hand blending wool, because I want to show you how to blend colors to achieve different values? Do you want to have a needle demonstration? And then if we can squeeze it in, we'll look at how to blend Angelina and potentially Neps into your needle felting. So that was a lot to choose from, wasn't it?
Okay, the first comment that came through was new first.
New. Kate, I'm going to answer Kate's question. She says, are you doing wool eyes on the doll head or glass eyes? We will do both. I'm going to show you both. We'll do glass eyes and wool eyes.
Cherie says all.
She wants it all. Okay, so real quick, what I would like to see is how many of you, either in the last 6 months, 12 months, or in the next 6 months, want to needle felt a portrait or a landscape or a realistic animal or any of these things, a picture, an animal, you know, scenic, especially where you think you want different shades. You want to get better at shading stuff. I know that's been a big question for us. People have asked about shading things.
Oh, we're waiting for those responses. Stephen asks, will you be going over any tips about how to make the faces either more feminine or more masculine?
Yeah. Oh, so we're waiting for some answers to come in. And Sam asked, will we talk about making faces more masculine or feminine? We absolutely will. I know when I first started needle felting dolls, it was kind of difficult for me for my faces not to look masculine. And so I'm going to touch on some of those features that you might play with. And I really encourage you to make a number of little heads so that you can experiment and not feel like it's like this is the doll and the only one. This way you can experiment. You can even have one that's full of noses. So make a few heads to play with.
A lot of people are saying landscape. We've got a couple.
Okay, good. Okay, great. People are going to make landscapes and stuff. Okay, so here's what I want to show you that is brand new to the Living Felt family besides Kayla. And you may not have been able to see, but they're right behind me the entire time. So I think we probably need to move me and maybe turn the camera down just a little bit. So turn your thingy. Anne's going to use her mad cameraman skills. And right behind me, down here on the desktop, I'm going to wait for Anne can tell us she can see it. Yeah? Can you see it, Anne?
Almost.
We're waiting for our camera to catch it. Oh, here we go. Good. So what I would like you to see are these 5 new colors in the Living Felt family. We're so excited about these colors. I feel like some of these, at least, you have been asking for. And so I'm going to show you the very first one is our brand new green. It's called Evergreen. And I'm going to show it to you next to Spruce. So some of you know Spruce. It's our deepest, darkest green. And when people ask us if we have a dark green, this is the green. When people ask us if we have a Christmas green, it's like fern or leaf. And I swear, I know that so many of you are going to love this as much as we do. This is Evergreen, new in the family, and is a solid, and just, we like it, huh, Anne? Do y'all like this one?
Oh, steady stream of hearts.
Okay, very good, very good. So this is Evergreen. And also new to the family, I think the fairies named this one. I mean, we all came up with the names, but this was voted for the most. This is Chimney. We're calling it Chimney. It's very much like a nice brick red. And for those of you who have mahogany, which we're pretty much out of right now, we're kind of out of mahogany, this is how they compare. I'll just step back because sometimes it's easier to compare the colors. This is mahogany and this is Chimney. And so Chimney is just a little more towards a brick red, don't you think, Anne? So chimney, this would make really good bricks. Clay pots and such, don't you think?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Clothes.
And a couple of our building friends want to confirm that this is in our MC1 file.
These are, I'm sorry, these are all MC1. Yeah, these big fat fluffy bats. This is our MC1 batting. Yep. Brand new to the family. Okay, so now these next 3 I'm super duper excited about. And what we have are 3 new grays in the monochrome family. So these grays, I'm gonna hold the darkest one up next to black so you can see how it compares to black, because I know it's hard to see on these cameras, but this should help you with your portraits when you're shading, when you're doing different gradations, and they're not heathered like our other grays, which are great for stones and all kinds of trees and things like that. So the very first one is coal, and I'm going to show it next to black. So this is black onyx and coal. Does that show up well? Okay, good. So black onyx next to coal, you can see how strong that is. And then this one here is called River Rock. So River Rock is in the middle. And it looks like those Mexican pebbles, those Mexican river pebbles like you see in the garden. So that's River Rock, and then this one is called Slate. So I was so excited to bring these to you. We sort of have them in the hopper. It takes a long, long time to make a new color, doesn't it, Anne?
It does.
I mean, I'm seeing like months and months to make a new color. So these guys have been in the works for a long, long time, and we're so excited to bring them to you. Cool.
Cherie says, I've never squeezed before, but the grays make me want to so bad.
I thought you might like those, Cherie. I told you I had something I thought you might like. Good. Oh, I'm so glad that you all like them. Cool, cool, cool. Okay, so let's, yes, those are going to be, so Terry says, are those 2-ounce packages. These are each 4-ounce bundles that I'm holding up right now. And this is what a 2-ounce size looks like when it's all rolled up. So these are the 4-ounce bundles behind me. And so it's available in 2-ounce increments. We're going to turn down the cameras. And what was the next thing voted on, Anne, that people want to see?
It was kind of a toss-up between needles and hand blending.
Okay, all right. So let's run through the needles first. I think we have plenty of time. Devin says she wants to move here and work here. I want to bring in this little red ball just for a second so that we can look at needles. We have 10 needles in our family. I think y'all know that. We have coarse needles, medium needles, fine, finest, and reverse.
We're good on the red ball.
Okay, we're good on the red ball. All right. And for those of you who don't know what needles you have, try and identify. If you didn't buy your needles from us, just try and identify, is this generally feel coarse, medium, fine, very fine, or a reverse needle, which you would know already. But I'm going to help you kind of corral whatever you have in your stash bin if you don't have our color-coded needles, and just show you a little bit what they do. So coarse needles, we have a blue 32, which is our coarsest needle, and a pink 36. These are our triangle needles, and these are really good for driving a lot of wool at one time. So if I have something that's already formed, then I can make a great deep hole in whatever I'm making. So when we get to our dolls, this is great for an eye socket. This is great for a belly button. This is great for attaching things that are that you want to combine and you're not really worried about the needle marks. 36 and 32 are both really coarse. They push a lot of wool, and you'll remember that that's what we started our sculptures with last time. So when you get your needles, poke something, make little beads like this and poke something and notice what is happening and how that feels. Notice also that I'm not bouncing off the surface. Even if I move fast, it's a driving motion, and this needle is going to work better if you actually push it in. I'm holding it up a little bit, I don't know if you can see, but this area here is the blade shaft, and these blades are very coarse. A triangle needle has 3 flat sides, and if you rotate the needle in the light, that should be fairly easy to see. If you rotate your needles, try and count those little sides, and you'll notice that all the notches are along the corner of each side. Oh, did you fix the pumpkin spice?
Fixing it.
Okay. Thanks for that feedback, Sue. we get a lot of stuff going on sometimes and we lose track of those little tiny details. So I appreciate you letting us know that. Thank you. Yeah, Connie says 32 is great for starting holes in felt beads. Absolutely, that's awesome. And so these are coarse needles, so you can also use them like when we're felting pumpkins later. Besides making a deep hole or a deep pit, you can use it to make a deep line. It's easier to make lines in something if you already have it felted semi-firmly. Otherwise, all the wool kind of squishes away to nothing each time you go in. But notice how we're able to make this deep line really rather quickly and make a line right down our shape. So 32, 36, or any coarse needle that you have is really going to push a lot of wool, and you're going to feel it as you needle. So if you're trying to make something really dense, start with a coarse needle and work it so that it's nice and even. Hi, Joanne from Hollis, New Hampshire. It's okay if you're a little late. Okay, so we have 3 different 38 style needles. These are all not color coded. I'm missing one actually, am I? No, I have them. These are not color coded, but I'm going to kind of give you a little cheater on how you can tell the difference. Actually, Anne, I think I'm missing a star. Can you grab me a 38 star? Thanks. Okay, so we have 3 different style 38 needles. We have a triangle, a star, and a spiral. The triangle is the finest one. The triangle is the finest one. We often use it in multi-needle tools like this, or our wooden needle tools. A 38 triangle is a great like general needle for like a workhorse needle, but especially when you're combining a bunch together. Maybe if you have students or children and you want to give them kind of just a general purpose needle that is right up the middle, a 38 triangle is good for that. And so this is a 38 triangle, and it is definitely finer than the 38 star, but it still pushes wool and still leaves needle marks. Thank you so much. When you want to get a little more coarse or get a little more action, try a 38 star, a 38 star or a 38 spiral. So we said a triangle needle has 3 flat sides, and if you rotate your needles in the light, you can see those 3 flat sides with the barbs along them. A spiral needle is really easy to recognize because as you twist it, you can see the spirals in the light. A spiral came after the star. It is said to push about the same amount of wool but leave less of a needle mark. I don't know that I've necessarily found that true in the 38s. I like using both, and sometimes I just feel like a 38 star has a little more gusto. A star needle, you have to really rotate it in the light to see that it has a groove running down the side, and that allows an extra place to put notches on the corner. So these all 3, the 38s, are all workhorse needles. They're great for that middle zone of really shaping your projects. So once you have them started with your coarse needles, move to your workhorse needles. I often keep I have 38s in this multi-needle tool. This is a kind of a small bead to use such a big aggressive tool, but it really pushes a lot of wool. And so I wouldn't use this aggressive of a tool with such a small piece, but I want to show you, you can use those nice workhorse needles in a tool like this and really push a lot of wool. Okay, so once you have something really getting firm, once you have it kind of to the shape you want, that's when you want to jump to your finer needles. Sometimes I go straight from a 38 to a 42, and one of the questions we get the most often is, how do I get my needle marks out? And this may be a little hard to see on the red ball as I get super close. But what I do is I'm going to work my 38 and just try and get it all smooth and level. me see if you can kind of see those holes in the light. What I'm trying to do is get it all smooth and at the same level of depression. And then once I have that, I'll often jump straight up to my 42 needle and just work across the whole surface. So rather than think of getting rid of needle marks, what I do instead is poke on any wool that looks like it doesn't have a needle mark. And that way I feel like I'm compressing it more down to the level of where the hole is. And let me show you something. I learned this from Jennifer Field when she came and taught a class now, I don't know, 3 years ago. She had little tiny rubber bands and I don't have any, but she takes 3 42 gauge needles, rubber bands them together so that they're at like the same level, and the needles are all super close together, and then just works across the entire surface of something. And really, this is kind of hard for me to see on this, so like here, this guy, he's got some needle marks. You can just work across the whole thing and continue compressing the wool, and the needles are super, super close together. Now, I'm not going to say it doesn't leave needle marks because you can see the needle marks, but what it does, if you work methodically, like that means work from one central place and then work your way out, as opposed to jumping all around. If you treat it more like shelf paper and start in one area and work your way around, then this provides a way to compress all the fibers nicely. Another thing you can do is use a tool like this, and this is locked. Let me just twist this. Use a tool like this and work your way around the entire ball to kind of get everything compressed to the same level. Work your way around the whole surface. And then once you have that, go back with either your 42, your 40 spiral, or your 40 triangle and work the surface. If it feels like there's still air in the wool, like still air in the surface layer, I would use either the green 40 or the purple spiral and get it compressed down. And once it's all flat, but I still feel like I have needle marks, then I'll jump to the single 42 and just poke the entire surface. And poke also at angles, like move your piece and vary your angle so that you're not always going straight in. The last thing I want to say, I know Anne's got a question queued up. The 42 needle has very, very fine barbs, and you can use just the first and second barbs. So when I'm finishing something, like this little dolly's face, you can barely see those needle marks. What you want to do is just tack shallow, 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 and you can vary that angle or you can move the piece. And your pokes, see like how smooth her dress is, even though she's not rock hard, is just with these gentle, shallow strokes. That's what I have on using the needles. What do you have, Anne?
And Mary Jo wants to confirm larger number is finer needles?
Yes, Mary Jo. So the larger the number, the finer the needles. The larger the number, the finer the needles. So start with a coarse needle, move up to medium-sized needles, the 38s, especially in your tools, and then you can have tools that have fine needles in them too. I always have a pen tool with my 42s in them, especially when I'm doing something like the doll head, so or dolls in general or anything small. I always have a 42s in my pen tool, but sometimes I only use 2. So play with it. Your way may not be the same as my way or someone else's way, and I just want to encourage you to experiment with the different sizes. The only thing I didn't cover are the reverse needles, and these both pull out wool, so they're really handy if you have wool underneath and you want to pull out a different color. One's a 36 and one's a 38. And so, I don't know, I have some core wool under here. You could pull out, you know, little spots of color on something if you want. So I could pull out little white polka dots on my mushroom rather than add them on top. And really you might use this more for maybe the muzzle of a dog, an Appaloosa pony, taking something that you've needle felted perfectly smooth and just adding a little furriness to one spot. Just keep in mind that wherever you have whatever is underneath is going to come up through the top. So like here, I can now just needle felt these little spots down. And then I didn't have to even add anything on top. It's just a thought.
Connie shares the gauge number used to literally represent, or the gauge, okay. The gauge number used to literally represent the number of times the wire was put through a stretching machine. That's why the higher the number, the finer the needle/wire.
Really? Wow. That's really interesting. Thank you, Connie. That's really interesting. I had no idea.
Kim asks, should you always finish with a finer needle?
I do. Some people like a fuzzy project, but I like a smooth finish. And if anybody wants to see, this just a little more up close and personal, there's a couple of like free, fun little videos on our website. One is for needle felting a scarecrow face, and one is for making these little mushrooms. And it's just little exercises where you can practice a simple project. But I always finish with a 42. I always do, because I want like a nice smooth finish. And if you're working something with like our MC1 bat, it will needle felt very smoothly. Okay, so I wanted to prime you with that for working on your dolls. And why don't I show the hand blending before we jump further, so that we can do it kind of quick. It's in my office. Okay. Okay, so here, let me show you what I brought with me today. I brought some really simple colors. This is caramel, this is clay, this is espresso, this is dark chocolate, and this is just our core wool. And when you are working in any color palette, whether you're working on an animal or a doll with variations in it, or a tree or a rock, you might find that you want slightly different values, and you might find you want slightly different values, and so blending the wool can really help. I see some questions that I didn't answer. Kate, thank you for answering the reverse needle question. And then someone says, will felting or steaming make the holes go away as well? So I want to answer that question from Kate. Oh, she said, would wet felting? I wouldn't wet felt a little something like this. Instead, I'm going to needle felt it smooth. I will offer just a couple of techniques before I get into this that you can do to help smooth the surface. Once it's well felted, you can take your needle and flick across the surface and then needle down any fuzzies. So you can flick a little bit with your felting needle or your dry needle. And you might also find that as you're working on a piece, that as you needle felt it and you roll it on your foam, that kind of helps smooth the holes. And you can also rub with your finger a little bit. But you should be able to rub your needle felted item and not have it fluff out on you. So it should be smooth enough that rubbing your finger doesn't cause it to pill or fluff or tear away. That's at least my contention for how well something should be felted. You shouldn't be able to pick it apart. So I don't wet felt little things like this or steam them, but if I'm needle felting, I always iron and steam press it. Like here's a little butterfly. This is real easy to get nice and flat on a thin piece of felt, but when I make felted pictures, I do iron and steam press them just to really, I don't know, just make them feel very finished. So steam pressing is really nice on a picture, but I don't do them on dolls. I do it on a purse, or I do it on a hat or a picture, but not a doll. Okay, so let me jump back over here. Actually, I brought other colors. Let's look at some hand blending and ways you might combine fiber. Here is also pumpkin spice, which is kind of bright, and then this is mango. So let's say that you have a color like caramel and you need to have it lighter. Maybe in some cases, if you're doing a dog, you need it to be more golden, and maybe you even need parts of it to be darker, like you see on an animal. Okay, so let's start with caramel, and I'm just going to show you how I blend colors, and then let's see if that works for you. So first of all, you have your base color. Here's caramel. Let's say we need to have it a little bit lighter, and we also maybe want to have it a little more golden, like on a tiger or on a dog. What I do is I take an amount about this much. I kind of say, well, maybe it's about a cotton ball size. And I always take an equal amount of a second color and blend those together first. So I start with a 50-50 blend. And you know, you don't have to just stack one on top of another. You can go ahead and make 4 little layers. I see some clay sneaked in there. 4 little layers and stack them together as if you're shuffling cards. It's trickier, harder. As if you're stacking cards. So here you can see I've got caramel, mango, caramel, mango. Is that 8 minutes? Still on? Okay. So then what I do is I just put my hands together like this, and I'm going to pull it apart and restack it, and pull it apart and restack it. Now just watch me here for a second, and what you can do is then even, you know, mix it up a little bit. Someone said every time they do their finger blending, the fiber pills. So what I want you to notice, first of all, there's going to be a little bit of pilling because this is a semi-fine fiber. Our Merino Cross is like 25 microns. But what you want to try and do is not tear the fiber itself. So just back your hands up a little bit so that it pulls apart easily. And that should help you avoid pilling. If you're tearing the fibers, then you're likely to get more pilling. So here's like a little cloud we have made, and I could still continue to blend it, but look how this compares to what we just made. It's nice, it's lighter without being whiter, and it's a little more golden. So this would be really nice for shading an animal, and it was super, super quick to do. So if you don't have hand cards, and we've demonstrated the hand cards a number of times, this is how I would blend the fibers. And I encourage you, if you make little hand blends like this, 1, make more. 2, save some back in a baggie and mark what you blended so that if you tend to repeat that, you can do it again. So now let's take a little more caramel and let's just go darker. In fact, this time I'm just going to use espresso. Again, try and go, you know, roughly equal amounts. It helps if you can divide the thicknesses. We doing okay, Anne? Okay, divide them and kind of mix it up so they're in different layers. And then just do the same thing here. You can always turn one over too. You blend 50% of caramel with a little bit of clay. I just want to give you some ideas so that you think, you know, you take what you already have in your studio, especially if you have, you know, colors that are in the same color family. Try and blend them up a little bit so that you can get different shades. With these new grays, you'll be able to add in some grays as well, and sometimes darken things or add a little bit of an undertone. But you can see what you do here and how nice it is to take something that's just right next to the color and get a slightly darker value. This changes it quite a bit. You could even add more clay, but we haven't even added white or black.
And Kelly asks, how do you assure you blend enough and get it all the same for large projects? Would you then use a drum carder instead? Oh,
you know, that's a great question, Kelly. And so maybe we ought to turn up since we're just about out of time. We're going to turn our cameras up here. So that was Kelly who?
Kelly Hoople.
Okay. Thank you, Anne. Okay, so Kelly Hoople asked, how do you blend so that you make sure you have enough for the project? And also I think it was, how do you make sure it's even enough? And so, you know, the thing I want to address the evenness first, and that is if you're doing anything that's natural, especially if you're doing anything that's natural, especially something in nature, you don't have to have 100% homogeneous blend. There's always going to be highlights and lowlights. And so if you look at our needle felting and realistic pet portrait video, which is, I know, quite detailed and long, but what you'll see is like once you make a blend, one of the magic parts is that then you can pick a slightly lighter part and then you can pick a slightly darker part depending on where you are. So don't worry about it having variations in it. You're going to want those for your project. And then the second thing is, how do you make sure you have enough? If you're doing something flat like a picture, you might be surprised at how far the fiber goes, but I would make a baggie full. I mean, I would make a baggie full so that you had some left after. And you know, you can blend bigger amounts than this. I just started with cotton ball sizes. You can blend sizes that are more like this. You can start with like the palm of your hand and see about that volume. I would just practice with small amounts so that you kind of get the hang of it. If you're working with our MC1, just remember, try not to tear the fiber, because that is what causes the pilling. And look, you're going to get a little bit of pilling. That's okay. Y'all can leave it open. Oh, Hannah's not coming. Y'all, you're probably going to get a little pilling, but just don't, just try not to rip it up too much. Okay, so I hope that I've answered your question. Susie says maybe she must have been tearing them. It will blend light enough for skin tone. Good. And can you top the MC? Can you use top with MC1 to blend? So Smokey asked, can she use like merino top with MC1 to blend? And I will tell you that, you know, if you try, experiment with little bits, but what you're going to find is that the top is a really long staple length, generally 2 to 3 inches, and this staple length is really short. And so it's very difficult to blend them together well as far as carding, because one's going to just want to pill up. They don't really play together that well being carded. Okay? Cool. Hey y'all, it's been super, super fun this session. I know we didn't cover everything that I had on my list, but we're super excited to revisit the doll workshop with you, part 2 on Friday. And for those of you who are watching on YouTube, be sure to subscribe and follow us so you know when our next video is out. But now it's time for us to give away some prizes. So the fairies are back, and Anne has her magic hat of names. Pam's holding it. So for people who've contributed during our live session, we're going to draw some names and give away some prizes. And who's picking first?
Hey, Kayla, you want to go first?
Yeah. Alright, looks like Susie Parker Kohler.
Yay! Susie! Congratulations, Susie. What'd she win, Anne?
Susie, you won a super variety pack.
So you won a super variety pack of all of our felting needle sizes. That's 10 different sizes of needles. You're going to get 3 of each size of needle, so you can play with those and experiment and see who's your favorite. Okay, who's next? You go, Anne.
Angela Wolf.
You're not in it. Come on over.
I'm in there.
Because yeah. Come on over. Yay, Angela! Congratulations. What'd she win, Anne?
You won an 8-ounce bundle of our CW1 roving.
Oh, very cool. So we start all of our 3D sculptures with that, and the roving is really great for wrapping. So just in case you aren't doing 3D needle felting, if you're doing more flat needle felting, let us know and we'll swap it out for the batting, which will be a little bit easier to work with. Okay, so one more prize. I'll shake. You draw. Come on, Pam.
Liz Janowski.
Is that Janowski? All right, Liz Janowski. Yay, Liz. What'd she win, Anne?
She won her choice of,
Sorry.
3 2-ounce rolls of our new colors.
Yay! So any 3 colors of our MC1, you can email customer service at livingfelt.com, and that is evergreen, chimney, coal, river rock, and slate. And let us know. And if you're not sure, then just call us. We'll be glad to help you. So thank you all for such a great hour. Hope we see you on Friday. Remember to post your questions for the doll felt along. And if you post any of your sculptures on any of your social media at any stage, put hashtag doll felt along and hashtag living felt. We'll be looking for you, and we're going to give away some prizes. Thanks, y'all.
Bye. Have a good